Joe, Texas Tech, our Red Raiders went up to Utah and got a dub 34-10. And quite honestly, a complete domination for the Red Raiders. When you look and go back and look at this game, how do you see it? How did you see it in the recap?
Well, first of all, this was a really good week for vindicating us. It was a really good week for like really establishing some of these takes that we've been building up on these teams that we've been excited about.
Bullish on Texas Tech. We've been so bullish.
I thought that there were two things that finally came to fruition. We were given a lot of evidence that they have speed all over this roster. They have speed at receiver. They have speed at running back. They've got speed on defense. We talked about in the preview going into the Utah game that they were one of the most explosive teams in the country. They just hadn't played anyone. So now you go up against a typically well-coached Utah defense, and you're able to get the explosives that you need to win that game. The other thing that I think really came to fruition, their offensive line was super sturdy and reliable, and their defensive line was fast and physical. I think that where this Texas Tech team is going to start to separate themselves from the rest of the Big 12, Blake, is that they have bodies along the lines of scrimmage that you typically see in the Big 10 and the SEC. That's what needs to be recognized. That is something that I think a lot of people this preseason were saying, is the portal class legit? Is this just another group of guys that they brought in? Is this just a bunch of paid assassins that they bring in and maybe they won't gel together? They're gelling at the current moment, and they're doing it at a very, very high level. Like, the most important part about this conversation, that Utah team is not bad. What Texas Tech just did is so impressive. To go on the road into one of the loudest stadiums in the country, in one of the hardest places to play, if not the hardest place to play in the Big 12, lose your starting quarterback during this game, freshman Will Hammond comes in, and you still win the ball game by multiple scores. That is why I am backing Texas Tech big time to continue as my team that I think wins the Big 12.
Well, Joe, not only that, they scored 24 points in the fourth quarter with Will Hammond. With Will Hammond.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
Yeah, dude.
And it wasn't just that. Because, listen, it's easy to box score watch. Now, stay with me here. Morton threw 2 interceptions. The back shoulder throw that got knocked up in the air because his receiver didn't come down with it, and it goes up in the air and it gets picked. Then the strip away by the safety from Utah. Yeah. Joe, that's not I'm sorry.
Good defensive plays, but those are not, like, I don't put those really on Morton. I don't
either.
You got great throws, but they're not totally his fault.
No, they're not. They're not. To be honest with you, the one that got stripped away, that, come on. Like, no. I mean, come on. The one that bounced in the air, I mean, the only reason I'd give him that, when you did throw it into double coverage, and that's what happens, right? Like, that is what's going to happen. You throw into double coverage. But, Joe, here's the thing, though. We can talk about how explosive they are offensively, but you hit the nail on the head. They ran the ball for 173 yards. Texas Tech. And not only that, on the inverse, they only allowed Utah 101 rushing yards on 31 attempts. Dampier ran 11 times. Rogers ran 10 times. Parker ran 6 times. Oh, and by the way, there was 5 turnovers in the first quarter. And I hate to say it like this. I think in the first half, they played a C- to C game. This isn't even – the first half wasn't even close to what Texas Tech can be. But, Joe, they leaned on them in the second half. Field position happened in the third quarter. It was what it was. They exploded in the fourth. And they dominated on both lines of scrimmage. Joe, I've never seen this Texas Tech team look this good up front. Whether it's the years all the way back when you had Mike Leach with Crabtree and the boys, when they were playing in Cotton Bowls versus Ole Miss, they've never been this physical. And they took, with all due respect, Joe, I thought that they took 2 offensive linemen for Utah. As you talked about this, a lot of people have projected in let's just say top 2 rounds for argument's sake. They couldn't run the ball. They could not move the ball. Dampier made some really bad mistakes and some really bad decisions. And, Joe, we had Utah fans in our chat last week talking about, well, Blake, show me the bad throws that he's going to make.
Yeah.
He is a turnover machine. And this is what's going to happen against teams with the level of talent. Now, I want to say this. Will Hammond, player of the game. Actually, I got to be real with you, player of the week in the entirety of college football for me. What Will Hammond did on the road, not only throwing the football, but running the football. 8 rushes, 61 yards, he had a long of 32. Joe, the only bad miss he had all day was the Terrence Carter miss, and then he comes back and hits him a second time for a touchdown. Yeah. That kid is really good. And it's all 3 levels, both offensively and defensively. But, man, I'm just so surprised at how great they ran the football and how willing they were in running the football. The best thing they do, too, is they get their running backs the ball in space and say, go have at it. Cameron Dickey, just phenomenal. Caleb Douglas, by the way, showed up in the second half with the 4 big catches, and I thought him and Hammond had a really good connection. Hey, listen, we're going to get Douglas the football because Hammond has a connection with him. Joe, I just thought it was absolutely phenomenal by Texas Tech, and they absolutely, I hate to say, Joe, they beat down a Utah team that in the first half they did not play a good game at all. They're just really good at all phases of the game right now.
Right. The way that I now look at this, Blake, is like, what more proof do fans or doubters need to see? Go ahead.
That consistency. Because I think when you have a team like this and you have a massive high, Joe, it's like Miami a year ago to some extent. Do you have a letdown any part of this schedule? But make no mistake about it, Joe, this is the most talented team in the Big 12.
Without a doubt. I think that's where my point with that question that I was posing was, yeah, they do need to show that they can string together consistency, because this was their first challenge of the season, and they answered that challenge with an exclamation point. A little bit of a shaky first half. They locked in despite dealing with the adversity of losing their starting quarterback. They were able to finish, and they were able to win by multiple scores. That is what a team does, that if they're capable of accomplishing greatness in a year, is that when they're staring down problems and things are not going their way, they improve. They lock in. They somehow get better. They tighten up. They know what they need to do. I think that with the schedule that they have coming up, it's so favorable for them to go 11-1, maybe even better than that. Blake, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think that Texas Tech at the current moment is the best team in the state of Texas. I think that defensively they're better than Texas A&M is right now, and I don't think that there's much separation offensively between Texas A&M and Texas Tech. I think Texas A&M is a little bit more speedy and explosive at receiver, and Marcel Reed looks good, but there's not enough of a separation for me to think that Texas A&M is so much stronger than Texas Tech. And I'm also going to add to this, the way that they're built in the trenches that we don't typically get with these Big 12 teams, I think that they can win a playoff game this year. I think that there is a real shot that they finish within the top 6 this season, and maybe they knock somebody off. Maybe they go further than that. This is one of the best and most exciting wins that I've had this year from anybody.
I love my Red Raiders.
If they replicate that win, let me put that qualifier on it. If they replicate that performance, that is a team that can win a playoff game.
First off, NBI, the game with Miami was 13-7 with 5 minutes left to go. Don't even come at me with that. But, Joe, there is a way they can get beat. You ready? They had 14 penalties for 122 yards. They've been heavily...
Well, yeah, they had a lot of false starts. That was a big issue.
They had a lot of false starts. They had a lot of penalties in general. 14 for 122.
And they still won, though.
No.
Imagine if they didn't have those 2 picks and they didn't have all those penalties. Yeah.
Well, they still dominated. So, again, when you talk about that's where I was trying to get at. It's twofold. They played a shitty game in the first. Let's just be real. They played shitty in the first half, and they didn't in the second. And that's the point. They got to prove it. I'm not going to go as far with you at the A&M thing, but they right now have shown through going to this game and through Utah. Goodness gracious, man! I mean, they can be a problem for a lot of teams. I'm not going to go that far yet. I love our Red Raiders, and they've shown us a lot of love.
You're soft.
But no, I just know that when when you're one of the more heavily penalized teams in the country, you go on the road again in a hostile environment, and you do that, you're going to get beat. You can't go in the playoff and do that either against these bigger teams either.
Yeah.
So you need to clean that up. Got to clean that up. All right.